are trying to do this incredible work and restore these buildings that are in bad need of work and, really overhaul. And people were very unaccepting of that. But what it told me was the amount of education that is still required in this area. And since we've opened these houses, people in this neighborhood come by and say, thank you. I tell them our clients want more privacy than you do. This is a setting where they're coming to work and heal, and they don't want to do it on the front sidewalk. They want to do it inside this comfortable setting. So it was a really interesting lesson for me to be sensitive about something I knew, intimately, but other people are afraid of. So that we have a lot of education left on our plate, and it's become part of our mission.
And for me, that's very frustrating sometimes. And
sure. You mean when people are a little judgmental about it?
Yeah, or just I don't know. I've talked about this on our podcast before, but when we got turned down for a grant, and they said the reason was because we had recovery in our name. And I was just like,
choice of words told them
like, are you kidding me? Like, do you understand what recovery is? And well, no, we don't know anything really about it. We don't have anybody that's on our board that's addicted to anything. And I just laughed, and I'm like, okay, well, I hope your grandkids.
Sure, and I think what you just summed up is the greater societal perception of this disease. And one of the things that we employ in our treatment is the medical model. And that is based on and from the 2016 Surgeon General's report. And in that report, it's a big, thick report, and I'll tell you the meat of it is, this is a disease that deserves the same compassion and care as other diseases. And so I think we're starting to see a little bit of progress. The opioid epidemic, which has been catastrophic in terms of loss of life, but the side effect of that is that people are talking about it now. It's been in the news. It's been in the headlines. And so, thanks to that report, and unfortunately due to what's going on in our country with opiates, and then, the awareness of other psychoactive substances, we are making progress. And so I'm finding that in just the 6 years since we've been doing this, we've come, I don't want to say a long way, but we have come a ways in that regard. So I'm feeling a little more compassionate about the people who are out there that don't have an understanding of it, and how do I get to them? So the people on the board you're talking about know what the word recovery means and what a powerful thing that is.
Yeah, because it's like, for me, it's very frustrating. It's something I take very personal. And when they're just like, I don't understand, and it's not their fault, maybe. Like you said, society. If somebody on their board does have a problem, or their son or grandson has a problem, they're not going to tell anybody about it because they want to keep it hush hush. That's why they want to keep the meetings in the basement. And I'm of the mindset now where it's like, no, let's put that meeting right on Front Street. Let's go. Let's let more people know about it.
But what your voice is doing is help this cause, and help, that perception of it is like, wow, that guy's, got a great voice. He's on the radio. He's sharing, some of the details of his story, and things like this are starting to open some mindsets. So, you're doing a lot for people who are struggling, Corey, and the people that still frustrate you. We can get through to them. We're going to just keep, one foot in front of the other and get there with education. And I know when we opened our men's facility in a beautiful home built in 1891, and it's you have to go door to door and tell people what you're doing. So there are families with children, and they get a pink postcard in the mail from the city that says men's drug rehab going in. Well, that would scare anybody, right? You get a bright pink card that says that. So part of my role was to go to those families and say, can I talk to you about what we're doing? And I sat in living rooms, and people were apprehensive, but they came around, and so it's an exciting thing to be a part of this movement of recovery. 1 in 10 people are going to struggle with it, And when you say how many people are touched by it, everyone is touched by it. Every family, every person, somehow, somewhere in your world, you are touched by the disease of substance use disorder.
And the thing is, it doesn't discriminate.
It does not discriminate. It does not discriminate socioeconomically. It does not discriminate, through racial divides. I mean, it is a non-discriminatory disease. And I think it was, let me think who the author was. Let me grab a book while we're talking. She's a neuroscientist, and she wrote a book, and it's called Never Enough. Her name is Judith Grisel. And one of the things that Judith said in her, she's 30 years in recovery now, and she decided she was going to go to work being a neuroscientist to understand the very disease she struggled with. But here's what she said in the very beginning of her book is, worldwide, addiction may be the most formidable health problem, affecting about 1 in every 5 people over the age of 14. So worldwide, this could be one of the biggest problems we face.
And when you start to break it down, like you were mentioning earlier with the mental part of it and it actually being a disease, and you start thinking about what people do, like obviously it's in our DNA to get food, to have shelter, water, to procreate. And when you take a drug and it makes you not care about housing, not care about food, not care about what we're built for, what our DNA says we should do to survive, that to me, screams, hello, like this guy's not doing it for fun anymore.
No, you just summarized my favorite topic to talk about, and this is understanding of the disease. And what you just said summarizes that the psychoactive substance, whatever it is, alcohol, heroin, stimulants, it hijacks that primal part of the brain that houses those survival instincts. So what you just said, procreate, eat, sleep, all of those survival instincts that are housed there. And I call that the caveman brain. That's where cavemen knew to survive, right? They knew what they had to do. That's hijacked. And that psychoactive substance owns it. So if during this podcast, the only thing your listeners remember is that the compulsion to use is as strong as the will to survive. And it's because that part of the brain has been hijacked. So you are 100% correct. But that's what people don't understand, is that the frontal lobe has gone to sleep. You don't have an executive director anymore, but the caveman's running the show. So all of those, important things like relationships and eating and sleeping, it's all overridden by this message of you need this psychoactive substance to survive.
Well put.
Okay.
Couldn't have said any better myself.
I could go on a little more. I got to stop myself because I really love, actually I'm going to go on just a little bit more with one more thing. So it was, I think in about 2017, Dr. Nora Volkov, and she is the director of NIDA, and she's a scientist, a world note. Awesome. And addiction is her, passion and specialty. And here's what she said, is that when this disease progresses, caveman, is in charge. Survival, primal brain is in charge. The frontal lobe, and that's the part of the brain that distinguishes us as human beings, the caring part, the conscientious, conscience, all of those things, that goes to sleep. Now, when you stop using no psychoactive substance, feeding the caveman, you automatically assume that frontal lobe is awake and back in action. That's not the case. And what Dr. Volkov said was that frontal lobe is like playing a video game with a broken controller. So the video game is the game of life, but for the first part of that healing process, you've got a broken controller. The frontal lobe doesn't jump back right in the driver's seat. It takes a while to heal. And that's what we talk about during that, recovery-oriented systems of care and the early journey of recovery. And there's different people that say it takes 8 months, it takes a year, but it's a length of time before that frontal lobe is back in action. So 2 things. You remember that The compulsion to use is as strong as the will to survive. And when you take away that substance, your caveman is screaming, but your frontal lobe is like a broken controller trying to navigate this virtual environment, which is your life. So that's my little short nutshell neurobiology of addiction.
See, I love learning that. I mean, I went to a bunch of rehabs, to learn some of that stuff. You went to school.
Yeah.
And
I had a professor that really challenged us, and he was awesome. So he ignited my passion, along with, like I said, our family has been, profoundly impacted. So I had that side of it too.
Yeah. The fact that when I would relapse, it kind of makes sense in a way. And my family didn't understand that. And not at first. My mom was really great at reading and finding out more, finding out why. I'm, of course, her favorite child out of 4.
Yes, of course you are. I can tell why.
Yeah. You haven't even met the other ones, but yeah, you can see why. But so for her, she, really kind of, okay, let me learn. Let me not just go to, meetings or whatever, but she was like, I'm going to dive in. And it kind of was almost too much, because if I would start trying to, see somebody or date somebody, she'd be like, nope, it hasn't been a year yet. And she would like blow my whole game up, but yeah. But my stepdad, I remember him having a conversation with me, he's like, when is this going to stop? Can't you just have 2 beers and see, you can have 2 beers and be fine, and meanwhile on the inside, I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to leave here. I'm going to go get, a half gallon. Like, I can't wait. And those 2 beers are just, why did I even drink them? I was like, but
right.
It makes sense.
So let's talk about relapse for a second. Relapse is another one of those topics that, relapse can look to the outside observer like something that is careless and a big mistake. And it's what a relapse tells us. A relapse is brain chemistry that's gone awry. And if you think of that brain in those initial healing days, I think it's 50% of relapses, maybe even higher than that, happen within the first 3 months. And that's because of that electrical circuitry going on in your brain misfiring. So relapses can be physiological, but relapses also, for a clinician, they're kind of like a database on what might not be working. What do we need to tweak in this recovery program? Why did this person stumble? So if we use that as clinical material, grist for the mill, if you will, that allows us insight into this is a disease that needs lifelong management. And so you can't expect that management is always going to be perfect and someone's going to be able to maintain their sobriety, because there are stumbling blocks. And, of course, we do days worth of groups on this kind of thing. But if you look at that relapse as, I hesitate to use, but I'm going to, as part of the disease, in fact, it is, it's a piece of information. It's data that we say, wow, something's not working. What do we need to tweak and how do we need to fix it?
I want to jump to another topic before I have to let you go. And that is the holidays, because we just made it through Thanksgiving, and it's a lot for some people, just being around family, being around other people. Maybe they've lost loved ones who aren't with us anymore. And with COVID, it's just insane. The isolation that's been there, the people that have fallen off and that are trying to get back. And then boom, here we got the holidays again. I had a
Sure. So the holidays is a hotbed of triggers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got frivolity, you've got, alcohol, you've got family, all of the above. And the other thing, particularly with early recovery, is that stress, okay, it's easy to say, try to stay away from stress. But what stress does is it actually causes cortisol, and that cortisol goes up to the brain and, knocks on the caveman's door. And so there's actually a physical craving associated with stress. So it isn't just, oh my gosh, I'm stressed and I feel like drinking. There's more to it than that. It's a little deeper than that. So the holidays, protect yourself. Make sure you have a hotline to call. Make sure you have, phone a friend when you get into those situations. Set a timetable when you're going to arrive and when you're going to leave. And I know the tendency is to worry about others, but this is a time that you really need to protect yourself. If you had a broken leg and someone asked you to run a marathon, you wouldn't do it. They wouldn't ask you to do it.